if we count off our months, if say
August.
they did one in August,
Yeah.
August, September, October, November, December, January,
Yeah.
would be 6 months. And one of the things that we'll get to with Picard. Picard was initially being talked about as like a late 2019 show, but they did announce yesterday it'll be in 2020, early 2020.
Yep.
So I'm assuming probably right around the same time Discovery premiered this year, like mid January. And 6 short treks would make perfect sense with that if we got one maybe in August.
Right.
So they said there would be 3 of them that would center around Pike and crew. Pike, Spock, number 1. 2 of them are animated, which I think we've known for a while that they were doing 2 animated shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot of detail on them, like what they're about, what kind of animation they are. Not a lot of information yet at this point. And then there's one. The last one will be a lead up to Picard. Like a Picard prequel, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a trailer, which mostly completely centered around the Pike ones, the 3 Pike stories, Pike era stories, I guess call them. What did you think of the trailer? Since that's pretty much all we saw.
It got me really excited. I'm really excited to see kind of Pike and crew back. In any way, shape, or form. I loved seeing them in season 2 of Discovery, but it got me really excited. I'm surprised of kind of what they had already shot, and again, it did what a trailer should do. It raised a lot of questions. It got you excited, so that's what it did for me. Raised a lot of questions, but that's usual.
Yeah, me too. First of all, I echo what you just said. I'm surprised at how much is shot already and how well produced that trailer was. They've evidently been working on this for a while.
Yeah.
But I thought the Spock number 1 stuff and the turbo looked really fun, cool. That's apparently written by Michael Chabon, who wrote Calypso and is the showrunner on Picard, which is really cool. That gives me a lot of confidence with that one. It's Ensign Spock, so it takes place like it's before anything was on season 2, before the cage, way back.
7 years,
something like that. Yeah. So that's interesting to me. It looks like one Pike is in trouble. He's like a hostage. Not a whole lot of detail. I have no idea, but he looks like he's in trouble in one. And then there's one that looks to focus heavily on the Tribbles. Which the thing that I kind of took away from these is 2 of the 3 that it looks like we're getting look pretty fun, like light. Look like the Tribble one, and then the Spock number 1 story seemed to lean heavier into comedy, lighter fare territory, which is interesting to me, and I'm totally open for it. I think the shorts is a great place to kind of do that. Which never mind. I was gonna ask a question, but there's not enough information.
Okay.
So season 3 of Discovery, we got surprisingly, not a whole lot of information.
There's some photos.
There's some really cool photos.
Yeah.
They're shooting in Iceland, at least the first episode, which is a place, ironically, you've been to.
I have, yes.
Very cool.
And it does feel like a different planet, so I'm happy that they're there.
So it's a good choice for a location shoot.
Yes.
It looks awesome. It
does.
The location shooting looks awesome. It does look alien. It looks different than anything we've seen in Star Trek before.
Yeah.
Like just the wide openness of everything.
Yeah.
Definitely a cool choice. There's a new character that they introduced. Nickname is Book. He's got a fuller name that I'm not remembering, but I have my handy dandy Trek movie article because Trek goes down.
Yep.
But I'm not seeing the full name. Cleveland Booker is the character's name. So this is the guy in the future, where Michael Burnham at least ends up. played by David Ayala, who I don't know. Apparently, he was in Supergirl, which I haven't watched. But one of the little plot points that they kind of revealed in the panel is that in episode 1, it turns out that Burnham and the Discovery are not necessarily in the same place. They don't end up landing at the same location, and Burnham meets up with this guy, and we're off from there.
Yep.
So we kind of have an idea of what sort of to expect at the beginning of season 3, from a storyline standpoint, from a look standpoint, but not a whole lot of detail beyond that. They said that, you know, they're looking to push the boundaries, which is kind of a natural, given that they're basically 1,000 years into the future. Things are going to be different, but they emphasized, Alex Kurtzman emphasized, that they're doing everything they can and making it a big point to like stick to Roddenberry, like that's going to be a big point. They're not steering away from that, but they are going to push the boundaries, and it's going to be different, which it has to be if you're going to go 1,000 years into the future.
Yeah, exactly.
And push that far out.
It's status quo. It's too far. It's too far in the future.
Yeah, right. It wouldn't make 1,000 future. It was kind of, oh, this is what we expected to see, or this is similar to what we've been dealing with for the last 53 years of Star Trek, which all kind of takes place in a 200-year, 300-year window, which sounds huge, but when you compare it to 1,000 years in the future,
that's big.
It's kind of a small window.
Yeah,
it's a big jump. So I'm glad that they're pushing the envelope. I'm glad that they're going to be bold with it, and I'm really interested. Like we said at the end of season 2, it's the first time in forever, really, that you can jump into a show, like into a new season, a new storyline, and we can pretty much say we have no idea what to expect. We have no idea what it's going to look like. We have no idea what's going to be where, what it's going to be, which is a unique feeling. And I came away from the panel still kind of feeling that.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts? Get more about that in the future, in the near future, with Vegas coming up in a couple of weeks. The entire cast of Discovery pretty much is there that weekend. So I'm thinking in a couple of weeks we might have maybe even a little bit more on Discovery season 3. Just in their panels and their appearances there. I think there will be more to learn. So I'm sure there's more to come soon with that speculation and that news. Moving into Lower Decks, which is more brand new territory for Star Trek animation. Maybe not brand new, but new in the last
animated
45
series. Years. People forget it's people
forget.
Yeah.
It's we've done it before. It's not completely new.
Yep.
But it's certainly it's a bold direction to go in. Given I've heard them say it, but I've read it. But 4 ensigns on an unimportant ship that's out there doing grunt work, and this is the bottom of the barrel kind of Starfleet officers doing the hard work, and have not arrived yet in their careers. They're still making mistakes and they're still learning. And we kind of know about now. There's a whole voice cast that you can find online. Jerry O'Connell's in the voice cast, who was in Sliders back in the 90s. It's a big science fiction show from the 90s. He was a name for a while. What did you think of what you saw from Lower Decks? The animation style, the story,
I definitely liked it. I think that again, I'm still waited with kind of bated breath. I like that they again are kind of sticking to their promise, like with the Lower Decks. Like there's the premise of the show still is ensigns, and I think could be really interesting. I'm still kind of nervous to see how this is going to work, as far as like the animation side. So I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, the animation is kind of what I expected, knowing that it's Mike McMahon, who is Rick and Morty. It's not my favorite kind of animation. It's not maybe the type, the look that I'm most partial to. But I would have been surprised if it wasn't sort of that aesthetic. I'm open-minded to it. I like how colorful it is. I like how it looks very reminiscent of like TNG Voyager. Just the drawings of if you look at like the backgrounds, the sets, the locations, it does remind me of that era of like set design, and it gives off those vibes that I'm kind of happy about. I love the premise of the show. I'm most eager to learn more and see more with the way it's going to look, and of course the kind of humor that they're gonna play with. Because it's animation, it's obviously going to be. I mean, they're making no bones about it. It's going to be a funny show. It's going to lean heavily into comedy. They're very adamant that it's not going to be satirical. It's not going to be poking fun at Star Trek. It's going to be. It's going to capitalize on the kind of humor that we're used to in Star Trek, but it's just going to lean more heavily into it. Is basically what Mike McMahon was saying. But I want to see that. I want to see the kind of humor they're gonna take, what the sense of humor is going to be like. But I do love the premise of the show. I love the idea of exploring a ship that's not the most important ship, or not doing something that's like critically important, and that's kind of just one of the ships out there doing the grunt work, doing the not sexy stuff, and then spending time with crew on that ship that are doing the not sexy stuff on that ship. It's like we've talked about many times on Trek Live. I know some of my favorite stuff in Star Trek is the more day in the life stuff that isn't leaning heavily into like high stakes and big picture, big picture stuff that's going to impact the whole universe. Just what's it like to live on a ship or a space station? What's life like in the 24th century? And this is a show that seems like it's going to get to explore that territory, and I'm excited about that. So I'm eager to learn more at STLV again in a couple of weeks. That entire writing staff is evidently going to be there. So there's going to be panels about Lower Decks. They're going to be talking about it more with more time to do it at Vegas, as opposed to just a 20-minute slice of a panel at Comic-Con. So we're going to learn more in the next couple of weeks. This is also coming in 2020. In short, in 2020, we're going to get Picard. We're going to get Lower Decks. We're going to get Discovery Season 3. We're going to get shorts. It's going to be a packed year with new content. So Lower Decks is one of them, and it sounds like it's probably going to be between, I'm thinking, Picard and Discovery, which might actually be kind of cool. Like Picard and Discovery. They haven't said that, but knowing that Discovery just now started shooting, I'm thinking that's probably going to be a ways off. Maybe next summer, or maybe even later than that.
Early fall, maybe.
Maybe early fall, with Picard looking like it's going to be maybe pretty heavy and dramatic stuff, and Discovery, we already kind of know what to expect there. So maybe having a light animated comedic show sandwiched between them is the necessary thing, So
have they said how long this animated series is going to be? How many episodes?
10. They did say 10 episodes.
Okay.
Yep. Same as Picard. It's going to be a 10-episode season. And that's kind of where it is. There are online, you can go on Trek Movie and Trek Core. We're not going to do it right here, go through like character bios and everything like that. But you can get all that information. They've pretty much outlined who they are. They sort of group them in two. There are the 4 ensigns who are the actual leads of the show, and then there are the 4 senior officers who are in the show and think they're the leads of the show, but really aren't. They're kind of background characters. There's the way they've kind of phrased it, framed it in the past is that in these episodes you're going to get like the A plots that you get in TNG and DS9 and Voyager, slightly higher stakes, things happening, but they're always kind of in the background. Like they're going to be the B plots in Lower Decks. Our main characters, our ensigns, know what's happening, and they may have some sort of part to play in some of these things, but they're not readily involved in those things. I would think it's gonna be like Lower Decks, the TNG episode, where you're kind of following these young officers who are stuck at their stations when the bridge crew go into the observation lounge and have their briefing to kind of go over all the details that we're usually going to go in and listen into. We're going to be in the dark with all those things. So we'll know that things are happening, and those main characters, those bridge officers are going to be dealing with those things, but we're not necessarily going to spend a whole lot of time with them. which I think is a cool spin.
Yep. Yes.
Yes. And I guess we should just go right into the big kahuna of the day, which is the Star Trek card content.
Still recovering.
Still recovering. I've watched that trailer quite a few times.
Yes.
And been reading everything I can get my eyes on. I'm loving following Twitter and seeing what everybody else has to say about it, which is pretty uniformly positive. I'm pretty surprised at the lack of backlash and negativity surrounding this trailer and some of the news we're getting. So the big thing to talk, it's impossible not to lead with the trailer. I mean, there were things that they talked about and things that they covered. It's very vague. They're not going into a lot of detail. We don't know much about the storyline, where it's going to go. We got a little bit out of the trailer, but the panel, I would say, from what I've read of the panel, I haven't watched the panel yet, which apparently is on YouTube now, is skirting around a lot of details. It's very broad, general conversations about Patrick Stewart coming back, what it's like to work with him, and the tone of the show. But the trailer is where the talking points, I think, really are coming from. Yep. So, what were your main thoughts about the trailer in the 24 hours since kind of seeing it for the first time?
I was blown away. There was some stuff that I kind of expected to maybe see, and then others that I had no idea was going to happen. So I'm blown away. Again, I was just really excited to kind of see where everything goes, and kind of in the coming months, with maybe some short treks and into the actual show. But I was blown away.
I was too, for a whole lot of different reasons. Actually, they're the big, huge ones that we'll get to in a second. But I was really impressed and kind of relieved, maybe, that the tone of the character seems more in line with what I was hoping than I kind of feared. I had this thought in my head that, based on things they were saying and things that Patrick Stewart even was kind of talking about, I had this image in my head of like a very dark, brooding Picard who's, angry and miserable and has to really get pulled out of that. And I was impressed by how that's not necessarily the case. Like he's definitely in a different point in his life, but he's recognizably Picard to me. He has moments in the trailer where one of the characters says something like, "Be the captain, people remember," and he kind of smiles. Like he's not miserable. He doesn't not want to be doing things. In fact, what he wants to do, there's that voiceover at the beginning of the trailer where he's talking about trying to settle down on Earth, working in the vineyard, doing what retirement says he should be doing, and it just doesn't feel like home. It's not what he feels like he needs to be doing. And that's a different angle than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be more of kind of the opposite. He doesn't want to go do something, and he has to get dragged to do it,
right?
As opposed to wanting to be out there. Like he's pulling himself. Thing for me. And then I guess we got to just talk about it. There are characters returning in this. We see 7 of 9. Jerry Ryan is back, which is just unbelievable to me.
It really makes sense because she is active in TV. She's not just doing Star Trek. She's in other stuff, but
absolutely,
she fits with the time. She belongs in that time period in the universe. So it makes, now that I think about it, it does make sense, and I'm really glad that they brought her back.
Absolutely, and we see a Borg cube. We see things involving the Borg.
Now, before all the haters will say like, "Oh no, another Borg story." I mean, if you think about the time, this late, late TNG, Voyager, the Borg is a very prominent thing in that time period. So I feel like not to do it, I think.
Honestly, yeah. I'm over the moon about the Borg, to be honest. I mean, when I think about it, I'm reticent about the Borg in things like Enterprise and things like Discovery,
yes,
and things like the Kelvin universe. Those things, I'm like, no, we don't need that.
Stay away.
This is not the right time for it. But when you figure like the last two things that we've seen in this timeline are Nemesis and Endgame from Voyager. Like they're the two most recent pieces of Star Trek canon that take place before what we're going to get into with Picard. Mm-hmm. And in Endgame, they're dealing heavily with the Borg.
Yes.
You know, Admiral Future Janeway injects the Borg Queen with like a virus that seems to be taking them out and damaging them. Great. Like, I want to know what happened. I want to know what that means.
Yeah, that's
I want to
big
know what
moment.
the Borg. Yeah, and we never get to find out. Like, what do the Borg look like? I mean, I know the books have explored a lot about this.
Yeah.
There's the books that have continued the 24th century storyline have also leaned very heavily into the Borg, which makes perfect sense. Like you said, they're prominent. It's a big deal in that part of the timeline. And the way Voyager ends kind of throws down the gauntlet with the Borg, and it kind of commands the need for something more. And I love that we're going to get it. I love that the show is going to do that. So with that in mind, when you're going to play with the Borg, it makes perfect sense. 7 of 9 should be there. Like, of course, she's going to have some knowledge and going to be involved.
She's a resident Borg expert because she is one. Jeez,
she is one. And it's going to be. I mean, just the idea that we're going to know what happened to 7 of 9. Like, we're going to find out something about like what she's been up to, what happens to her after she gets back to Earth.
Yeah.
All of the sort of dissatisfying stuff that comes from the end of Voyager is really centered around not knowing what happens next, like not getting any kind of satisfactory closure to what's going on with these characters, like what's going to happen to them.
Yes.
And this opens the door to at least answering some of those questions
and possibly rectify and put a band-aid on Endgame. Maybe
who
knows?
Yeah. In the Star Trek movie franchise are The Final Frontier and Nemesis.
Yes.
And to me, the big difference there is that Star Trek 5 has Star Trek 6 that comes after it.
Yeah.
Where Nemesis is the end of that story.
There's nothing. Until now.
There's nothing after it. Until now. Which, I'm maybe a little bit more forgiving of Star Trek 5 because there is more to the story. It's not the end. So it's my favorite thing about this is that for characters like 7 of 9 and maybe others, that's the other exciting thing about this. That
what else piece of news did they say at the panel?
Who else is
Frakes? Frakes. Yeah, it's gonna be back.
Marina Sirtis.
Yes.
And we see Brent Spiner as, I guess, B4/Data. Questions to answer there. But yeah, I mean, we know we've seen 7 of 9. We've seen Data, B4, whoever he is. And we know that
flashback
Frakes,
or something. I don't know if he's
actually
back, but yeah, or not a flashback, but something.
Yeah, it could be a lot of different things. But the fact that they're open to bringing these different characters back and these actors back is really cool because it's gonna heal some of the wounds of Nemesis and Endgame potentially with unsatisfyingly ending that part of the timeline that we spent so much time in. So that's really exciting. And the fact that 7 of 9's involved at all tells you that they're not limiting themselves to just like the Next Generation. It's not just because it's Picard. It's that they're not saying, okay, we can play with these 6 other characters. They have the Deep Space Nine characters at their disposal. They have the Voyager characters at their disposal. And they're making it clear early on that they're not opposed to using whoever they feel like can help tell the story. That's exciting. I think it opens the possibility of seeing all kinds of different people. And by no means I don't want this to become like the cameo show. I don't want this to become the Star Trek reunion show. I'm not expecting. It has to be tasteful. It has to help the story that they're telling. It has to make sense. And certainly the TNG characters make the most sense because of the personal relationship with Picard. It's maybe a harder thing to pull off involving a Deep Space Nine or a Voyager character. But if the opportunity presents themselves, they've made it clear already that they're not opposed. which is really exciting.
Yes.
Um,
Real quick, Ross is saying that thrilling that both Romulan and Borg stories are continued. I totally agree, Ross. And he says there must be others not disclosed too. If Q doesn't make an appearance, he's going to eat his hat. Ross, I'm going to hold you to that. So if that happens, then... but yeah, and then he says it's a franchise story, which is true. I mean...
Franchise story.
Move over, Marvel. You know, the original big franchise is back.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Ross also mentions. And Thad, how you doing? Good to see you too, as always.
Thad.
Ross mentions the Romulans, and that's kind of the Romulans clearly are factoring very heavily into this.
Yes.
Which I think we kind of already knew. They kind of already stated that
yeah.
The beginnings of 09, the birth of the Kelvin timeline from the Prime Universe's side of things will factor into this, and it's going to explore what that looks like, which is something I'm definitely interested in. You know, that's a huge, colossal
moment in the timeline.
Moment.
Yeah,
you
can't just
Romulus
glaze over
gone.
that.
Yeah, they got rid of Romulus, and
yeah.
that's it. The Romulans are refugees now, and it changes the entire landscape of the galaxy, and the and what's left of that society has to deal with that, and everybody else has to deal with that. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to play with there, and it looks like this is going to explore that in a lot of detail.
Yep.
Some of the main characters in this show are Romulan, based on the character bios that we can get online and by watching the panel. That's awesome to me. I love the Romulans. I think they're interesting. All the subterfuge and but the cool thing about this, they're going to be different. You know, their whole situation's different. They're not unlike they were in the past. They're not this other power that's sitting on the other side of the neutral zone that's kind of keeping the Federation honest.
Yeah.
You know, that's not what they are anymore. It's a whole new dynamic.
Yep.
The other thing that I'm kind of hoping to explore with this show is, you know, if you're thinking about it from the Prime Universes, the Prime timelines side of things, you know, Romulus gets destroyed. They try to stop it with the red matter device.
Yeah.
Who do we lose in the Prime timeline in the process? Who gets thrown into the Kelvin timeline?
Spock.
Prime Spock is gone. And you know, one of the things they're kind of implying here is that Picard feels a lot of guilt with the way things happened, and you know, Picard knows Spock. Picard had a mind meld with Sarek and has all of Sarek's feelings inside of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe part of the demons that Picard's dealing with is, you know, specifically related to Spock. That, you know, in their mind, if you're in the Prime timeline, you don't have any idea what happened to Spock. Spock's just gone. He flew through a black hole and never to be heard from again.
Yeah, he killed Jordan pretty much.
He's gone.
Yeah.
And that's a huge. I would imagine that's going to weigh on Picard, and I'll be curious to see if they address that, if that's something that they speak of, or if it's going to be, you know, I don't know, left off to the side and something that we know about but they're not going to play with. But I think there's opportunity there, especially given the stuff that happens in TNG with Sarek, the mind meld, and Spock and Picard kind of carries with him, you know, a piece of Sarek from that mind meld.
Yeah.
So he feels something for Spock.
Because it's entirely possible, because isn't Spock is in TNG, so I mean, if we're talking about,
so he's met him.
He's met him. He's, you know, so he's definitely fair game as far as stuff goes. So it could happen, definitely.
For sure, yeah. Picard is very aware of Spock, knows him personally, has been through things with him, knows things about him through his experience with Sarek, and he mind melded with Spock too. One of my favorite things in Unification is the way that episode ends, where Spock gets to kind of get Sarek's impressions of Spock through a mind meld with Picard.
Yep.
And like, it's this indirect, like, he knows what Sarek really thought of him through that. So there's this weird connection that Picard has with that family and with Spock. And if Picard's involved in this incident at Romulus that changes the whole face of the galaxy, and Spock is lost in the process, you would think that that's something that would weigh on him. But in the trailer, we do get him in. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say in the trailer, he's talking about in the opening monologue, he's struggling with the fact that Data sacrificed himself for him. Like he's got that on him.
He's got a lot weighing on him.
He's got a lot weighing on him. Yeah. That's kind of the impression that we're getting, which is cool. I think that's a cool way to explore the character 20 years later. Things that happened are not just kind of forgotten about and moved on. It's not the reset button that we talk about. Things don't just happen and then we're good. Next thing. Yep. The experiences that he's seen and been a part of have taken a toll on him. And we're gonna get specific addresses to Nemesis. We're gonna get specific things addressed to the beginning of 2009. With the Borg, I think we're gonna get specific, maybe some endgame references and continuations of that storyline, and that's just unbelievably exciting.
Yeah, one thing that I want to highlight too is there's a lot of great TNG imagery. I mean, we got the Picard Day sign. We got a poker game with his clear, with the black handle, with obviously T in it. He doesn't want the game to end. Mm-hmm. Man, it definitely, it wasn't like overbearing at all, but it made you. It was like, oh man, you're reminiscent of that time spent on the ship and in the series and whatever else.
I appreciate that. While it's clearly not aiming to be the TNG reunion show, it's not aiming to be a sequel to the Next Generation in any kind of direct way. It's not shying away from
there's shades for sure. Yeah,
there's shades of it. It's not ignoring it. It's a continuation of the story at a different time, where the characters are in different places. But I couldn't agree more. I love the little pieces of connective. The Captain Picard Day sign was a real shocker to me. That's like a wow. What makes it like where I just want to know what where is that? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah.
Is it in his basement in his vineyard home? Like I'm just really curious about that. And it's a really cool touch. I mean, it goes to show that people who are making the show know the show and are aware of it. They have some details at their disposal because that's a pretty deep cut reference. Captain Picard Day. Ross is hoping for some Borg evolution. Absolutely, like we're clearly, I think, going to get something with that.
Yes,
that Borg cube that we see
looked damaged, but it still looked
ominous.
Yes,
not
it still looked like a Borg. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and I suspect there's going to be some sort of. It looks like, I mean, there's a lot of speculation already. If you go on Twitter and on different websites, you'll see
local grocery store they're talking about.
As always, people piecing together screenshots from the trailer and trying to connect the story, which is it's fun, and I love reading that stuff. But there clearly seems to be some sort of what's left of the Romulans might be toying with Borg technology or trying to do something. There's that really cool screenshot that people caught on to with the sign that says it's been 5,638 days since our last assimilation or something.
Yeah.
So there's clearly some stuff going on with the Borg, and it's going to be really interesting. Like we talked about, I'm beyond excited to find out what the next chapter of the Borg looks like. On this show, you and I have talked a lot through, especially the back half of season 2 of Discovery, kind of our reticent attitude with like, please don't do the Borg. Yeah, but this is a whole different thing for me. This is I'm eager for more Borg stuff in the context of this show, as opposed to what Discovery was doing.
Because this is where they belong. This is where they fit.
Yeah,
not that we don't,
sense. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I also want to touch on Brent Spiner.
Yeah, of course.
Still got it. He still feels. I mean, I think he says 5 words. But that still just sounds exactly like Data. Yeah.
It does. That's what shocked. Like, it really... it gives you goosebumps. Just hearing that voice. They're clearly playing with some de-aging. I don't know if it's prosthetic makeup. I don't know if it's CGI on Spiner's face there. But he reminds me of what B4 looked like and Data looked like in Nemesis.
Yeah.
It's almost like they kind of are really aiming to make sure he looks the same as he did in Nemesis.
Yeah.
One of the things, though, I would caution people. I've seen one of the knocks I've seen on the trailer is some people think that looks creepy, and it's not necessarily the most successful effect. And de-aging and that kind of stuff. Movies like Rogue One have certainly played with that to varying degrees of success.
Yes.
But one thing that we learned from both seasons of Discovery is when we get these trailers, the visual effects that you see in the trailer are not final.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can go back and find a multitude from seasons 1 and 2 of shots from trailers that are not the final version.
Yes.
It's completely different sometimes. Like there are shots that were evidently completely redone and reconceived. So don't take this as this is what the show is going to look like. I'm sure there are things that are going to look a little bit different, and I would think something like that is something that they're probably tinkering with all the way up to when it airs. So yeah, I'm very curious to find out. I know there's a lot of speculation too, like, and we kind of touched on it. Like, what is that Data in a hologram version of Data? Some people feel like it looks like there's a Nemesis-ish uniform there. You can kind of see on his shoulder some gray. It looks to me like that first one of the early shots of the trailer when Picard's giving the voiceover, they pull out this thing and it's like Data disassembled. To me, that looks like it's probably B4.
Yeah, that looks like B4.
So do they put B4 together and try to? Is it B4 or is it a hologram like you said? Is it a flashback? There's all kinds of things it could be.
Yeah, or something in Picard's mind or something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be a lot of different things. And that Brent Spiner was the one actor actually that I don't want to say like maybe least likely to appear in the show, but
I would say that too. Yeah,
just because of the storytelling challenges with where Data was left off at the end of Nemesis. Like it is not Data anymore; it's B4. Like, are they going to want to play with trying to connect back to Nemesis with is it B4 with Data memories, but not really? Like, are they going to want to play that game? And does Spiner want to do it because of wanting to be killed off in Nemesis? Data's actually maybe the last character I expected to see in this trailer. I mean, 7 of 9 doesn't count.
Besides 7 of 9,
yeah, that's.
I was gonna say, wait a minute here.
But of the TNG characters, the one I probably would have least expected to see would have been Spiner. So.
Yeah. Again, but you go back to it. He's such a prominent character in Picard's life. It's hard not to. So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And it is hard not to. He is like, aside from Picard, he is sort of the face of the Next Generation. Like he is.
Yes. Yeah.
He's the Spock of TNG.
Yeah.
People love Data.
Yeah.
So it does make perfect sense that they would not shy away from including him. I'll be honest. I did not expect to see any other characters, really, like any old characters. I didn't expect to see. I thought that their tact with this was going to be withhold
standalone, right?
Well, I thought that they would have TNG characters in the show in some capacity as it went along. I just didn't expect them in the first real trailer to kind of throw the hammer down and say, "Yep, they're in it." And to be so upfront about it.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to play those cards close to the vest and be coy about it because they kind of have been. They've been leaning so heavily into this isn't a TNG reunion show. It's Picard's story. It's a different part of Picard's life. We don't know if we'll include anybody else. They've been very sort of playing it coy, and I thought they were going to continue to do that, and it would be more of a surprise when it happens in the context of the show. But
right.
I guess they're like, you know what? Let's just embrace it and get people excited about it, which is the right thing I think to do because people are very excited.
I think it's
they're more excited because of it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a bold strategy, but I think it's going to work because we're already treading on sacred ground with Picard, obviously. So why not, kind of get them excited with, past characters? Makes sense to me. So
it just embrace it. Just call it what it is, and let people get excited about it. Don't, I appreciate that they're not withholding it and that they're kind of just making it known. Yeah, you're going to see people. Like Frakes is going to be in it. Marina Sirtis is going to be in it.
Yeah.
Just kind of casually dropping that in the panel. And then apparently Patrick Stewart told Entertainment Weekly yesterday that he's shooting a scene with Frakes as Riker tomorrow on Monday.
On Monday, yep.
So it's like,
is Frakes directing or
not currently? See? I don't think.
Yeah,
he did. He directed 3 and 4, but yeah.
A question that I have is, again, you kind of talked about it kind of in the beginning. Is this the next golden era of Trek?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yes.
Because, right, this is really reminiscent. Like, I wasn't really conscious at that point as far as a Star Trek fan, but it feels like a lot of what I've read. It's like, well, this TNG definitely got the universe back off the ground, but again, multiple shows in the works, movies, a bunch of stuff, and that's, exactly what this feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly comparable. Back when I was a kid, it was I took it for granted because I was born in 1987 when The Next Generation premiered, and I graduated high school in 2005 within weeks of Enterprise going off the air. So like my entire 18 years of like pre-college
is the golden
life
era of Trek.
is the golden era. Like from the time I was in kindergarten through middle school, there were 2 Star Trek shows on the air. I had 2 new episodes of Star Trek every week, and I kind of took it for granted. That was life.
Mm-hmm.
And that certainly up until now was the golden age, and it still may be. But this is a whole different level. I mean, we have so much happening at once, and I think what makes this different, especially for people like me, is that I had that golden age for a while there for my formative years, and then for whatever it was, 12 more years, 18 more years, I had nothing. Not 18, however many years. It's been 2005 to 2017, 12 years. I had like nothing, no new Star Trek at all, aside from the occasional Kelvin Timeline movie.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, like if you would have told me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that not only would we have Discovery, like new Star Trek on TV, Patrick Stewart is playing Picard again. He's going to have scenes with Frakes and Spiner and Marina Sirtis, and Jerry Ryan's going to play 7 of 9 again, and it's going to take place 18 years after Nemesis. And
crazy.
It's just unbelievable. Like it's just a completely it just is not something that was even remotely on my radar. I completely took it for granted that Nemesis was the end of that story. And that anything we were going to get might, reference back and do little things, but to so directly capitalize on that. The fact that we're getting that, and we're still getting Discovery, and we're getting animation, and we're getting other stuff that they haven't even talked about yet. And there's a Section 31 show, and at the end of the first panel yesterday, at the end of the Short Tracks and Discovery Season 3 the panel, Kurtzman asks the audience, who here wants to see a Pike Spock #1 show on the Enterprise? And of course, everybody cheers, and Alex Kurtzman says, "Okay, we're thinking about it." Like I mean,
such a baller
if we get
move.
that too, it is. This is clearly it. I mean, we're going to get in 2020 a year full of,
which I've been saying for a long time. They want to have working towards a continuous, Trek show on all year. But the thing that I like is it seems a little bit more calculated, and I think that's kind of smart of them, because I don't want it to have them burnt out again. I don't want, using the same writers, show after show after show. It seems like, they're spacing out the content very well. They're bringing in a bunch of, Star Trek heavy hitters as far as like, content creation, but also, bringing in some new people. So I'm really excited about that. So.
Me too, and I think that separates this too. I like the fact that this is different than the previous golden era. With TNG, DS9, and Voyager and Enterprise are kind of the products of that previous golden era, and they're all unique shows that have different strengths that stand on their own, and people Star Trek fans prefer this one over the other for very valid reasons, because they're all different. And they have, like I said, different strengths, different weaknesses. But those 4 shows all very much feel of a piece. They're operating in the same ballpark. They're the same sort of formula. They're trying to be operating in the same ballpark. Where I think what they're trying to do here is move away from that and trying very consciously to have each of these different shows not only have a different makeup from like a creative standpoint and a creative team standpoint, different writers, different backbones from a production standpoint, but different tones, trying to be different kinds of shows. They've talked about Discovery being a much more, or Picard being a much more psychological drama, maybe a little bit more methodically paced, less action centric than Discovery, say, is. And certainly Lower Decks couldn't be more different than any of it,
Yes.
We have completely
like
different.
A 180 there.
Yeah. So the embracing of different tones. We have shorts, like different formats too. Like they're shorts. The shorts kind of get, I don't know if they get lumped in with Discovery or what, but they're kind of easy to forget. Like that's its own thing too. We have short films that are part of this whole thing too. So to me, this is definitely a golden age. It very, very well may end up being like the peak of Star Trek is in terms of
whoa.
I mean, just the sheer amount of content, and if they execute it well and all this stuff is good and it makes people happy like us, then it's going to be hard to argue with it, just because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be, I think hopefully it's less likely to burn out. And even people talk about like the old burnout of the previous golden age, the Rick Berman eras. That took 18 years. It ran for 18 years.
I'm fine with that.
87 to 2005. It was on, like 18 years is not real. I wouldn't. That's a long burnout. That's, if this runs for
another 18 years, won't really be too upset.
No, I mean it's probably healthy to take a break after 18 years of doing this. Take a breather and reassess, and maybe get some new blood in there. Like this is bringing new blood in. It's not the same folks. So if it can match that, great. But it's already more than matching it in terms of types of storytelling and types of shows, number of shows, amount of content. It's exciting. It's a very exciting time to be a Star Trek fan. That's for sure.
Yeah, I feel like we gotta figure out a different. Like, I feel like we keep using Golden Era, like the Golden Rebirth or something else.
Yeah. It's gonna need a new name for sure. Yeah. There's gonna have to be a way to define this. Like the Berman years should have a good title like that. That was the Golden Age, and now this is what it call it the Kurtzman years, but that would invite a lot of some people don't like Alex Kurtzman at all. People get very upset.
I do.
Mm-hmm. I do. I have faith.
Yeah.
One side thing that I just kind of want to throw out there that I've seen people talk about that I just find funny. It doesn't really involve Star Trek. It involves the Orville. Is that the Orville is coming back for season 3?
Yep.
And I like the Orville, and I watch it. I do enjoy it. But I do find it funny that it's moving from Fox to Hulu, which the biggest fans of the Orville love the Orville because there's no paywall, and then it's on broadcast TV as Star Trek TV, and I find that to be poetic. That's great.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably good for the show. It's probably a safer place for it to live than
Yes.
Fox, which is notoriously quick to pull the trigger on canceling things.
Yes.
So good for the Orville. I'm happy that it's coming back. It's certainly not a perfect show. Neither is Discovery, for that matter. Anything, but it's something I enjoy, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Man, anything else?
I don't think so. I would just encourage everybody to keep on reading. Seek out all the information you can. Watch the panels, which I can't even claim to have done yet. I know they were kind of starting to pop up on YouTube last night.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to doing that today, just to get a little bit more nuance, maybe some pieces of information that I haven't digested from reading Twitter yet. But I think we covered our kind of overall impressions with the first blush news that came out of it. But I do think we're going to end up having to, I don't know if we can do a whole episode like this again in a few weeks, but I'm sure we're going to have to address more news that I'm sure will come out of STLV in a few weeks. Remember last year at STLV, we went through Comic-Con and there was no mention at all of Picard. That happened at at
STLV.
STLV.
So
Who knows what
there's
comes out of that?
still a lot of stuff that could happen. I feel like might be the floodgates. I feel like now we're gonna start seeing more casting news
Could
and
be.
all stuff like that. So
The thing that would make me the happiest, and that I think would be the boldest move, would be to repeat last year and come out to SDLV, bring Anson Mount out, and say congratulations.
we're doing a Pike show. So
yep, Anson Mount, Rebecca Romaine, and Ethan Peck are signed, sealed, and delivered. It's coming. That would be the best development that could come out of STLV in my mind, but
yeah,
certainly not holding my breath for that necessarily. I think we'll see, but
yep.
I'm just saying, who the heck knows? There could be some big stuff that we're gonna have to talk about coming out of that. But yeah, exciting times. Really looking forward to what's coming. 2020 is going to be a heck of a year for Star Trek, and yeah, 2020 might be the year that we find out what's going on with this movie universe too. I mean, something that we're not really covering here, but is definitely kind of on the back burner, is the Paramount Viacom CBS merger. Is kind of, those talks are alive again, and it looks like it's moving forward. So, once that happens, if that goes down, that kind of opens up a whole new set of possibilities with feature films and what Paramount can touch, and what I don't want to go down that road too much because I don't know the details of what's allowed to be crossed over and all that stuff. That's some dicey territory that gets people fired up. But if that ends up going through, that's certainly a whole new dynamic that could lead to even more stuff. And then we got the Tarantino stuff that's starting to kind of bristle. So 2020 is going to be full of news. I suspect that we won't probably get much concrete out of the Tarantino Star Trek project until 2020. He's got his new one coming out, and that looks like it's going to be a awards contender, which means he's going to be busy pushing that for the beginning of next year, and I think it'll be a 2020 thing if it's going to actually happen. So yep.
All right. Let's just start winding it down. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. I always say, Facebook, Twitter, Discord, but also subscribe to the YouTube channel to get more, content like this. Join the discussion. To keep the, Star Trek discussion alive, because we're going to have a lot to talk about, as Bill said. So,
And be on the lookout of our Twitters for our next Discord Star Trek After Dark hangout. We had one last week. Rob and Rising Phoenix, who's been has been a person who's watched some of our streams in the past as our Discord server, came and hung out. Jordan came and hung out for a little bit. We watched episodes. We just casually hung out and talked and played some trivia. It was a fun time. It was hours and hours long. Dan got super drunk. As he's one to do.
Yeah, typical.
Typical. But be on the lookout for that, and I hope people jump on board and join us next time too.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely keep that posted, because the more the merrier with stuff like that. So
definitely. Yeah.
We'll be back next week to talk about more Trek.
Yep. Look forward to it.